Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Waters Above. Over the past week, we've had a lot go down in this crypto market, with Sam Bankman-Fried found guilty and now facing over 100 years in prison, to XRP breaking out and hitting my target of 70 cents before the end of this year. So we have a lot to get into in today's video, and I can't wait to share this decode presentation I've prepared for you with a very important date tied to this current war, and I see this giving us another opportunity to position ourselves effectively before this upcoming bull run in 2024. So if you're new here, we do cryptocurrency technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, Numerology, and Astrology to understand these markets. Feel free to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to stay updated on when new videos come out, and make sure to give this video a like and share this channel with other conscious beings to help grow our community. And with that being said, let's take the clear pill. So in my last couple videos, I mentioned to watch out for the 44th week of the year that just passed, between October 30th through Halloween or Samhain into November 5th. And during the 44th week of the year, on November 2nd, which was the 306th day of the year, Bitcoin hit 36,000. So we have the 306th day. 306 becomes 36 in the rules of numerology by removing the zero before reduction. And so far, 36K Bitcoin is the current yearly high for Bitcoin, and it happened on that exact day across multiple exchanges. Now, to top this all off, Bitcoin in Gematria equals 36 in reduction, perfectly synchronized. And something else happened on November 2nd during the 44th week of the year, specifically in cryptocurrency, and that has everything to do with Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of FTX. He was found guilty and convicted on 7 counts of fraud and sentenced to 110 years in prison. This event happened exactly 1 year since the initial FTX ritual back in November of 2022. Perhaps some of you remember that. This happened during Eclipse season back then, exactly like we just moved through Eclipse season this year. We had these eclipses we were talking about for this end of the year time frame, starting with the October 14th solar eclipse, and a couple weeks later, October 28th lunar eclipse. Shortly after that, we have this go down with Sam Bankman-Fried yet again. Also, of course, during the 44th week of the year. Now, considering what happened last year with Eclipse season, FTX filed for bankruptcy right after that total lunar eclipse, which was on November 8th of 2022. And you could see that right here. Right around this lunar eclipse, we had everything start to unfold with FTX and FTT token. Their FTT token crashed on that day of the lunar eclipse on November 8th. Then a couple days later, on November 11th, FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And the initial date all this FUD kicked off was back on November 2nd of 2022, exactly 1 year before the sentencing SBF faces now. Back then, it started with the awareness that a significant portion of Alameda Research's assets were in FTT token, and that particular asset was allegedly very difficult to exchange for cash. The awareness of this truth came out on November 2nd, 2022. And here we are exactly 1 year later, and Sam Bankman-Fried is now convicted and essentially faces a life sentence. November 2nd is quite important with this code, and specifically for Sam Bankman-Fried. And let me get into that. So we have November 2nd, 2023, date that just passed during this 44th week of the year, having a 59 code, 59 days left in the year on this exact day. Also, a year ago, it was the exact day that this ritual started on for this company and this individual and everyone tied back to him. Well, 59 significant for Sam Bankman-Fried by the code because his name that we call him popularly, Sam Bankman-Fried, adds up to 59 in full reduction. What's even more fascinating about 59 is it's the 17th prime number, and this 17 connects perfectly back to FTX, equaling 17. Remember, this happened on the day leaving 59 days in this year. Also, Sam Bankman-Fried giving you this 48 in Chaldean. And if we take from November 2nd back to the day of Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, and effectively the end of our Jubilee, that was on September 16th of this year. And if you include the end date, you're going to see that it was 48 days apart. So he's literally sentenced 48 days after Rosh Hashanah. You're well aware that Sam Bankman-Fried comes from Judaism. And that's what this is all about right now on the world stage. Not just Judaism, but specifically Zionism. And this individual is all tied to that. Remember, before I was just talking about the 306th day of the year being 36? Well, in the Gregorian calendar, if you look at his birthday, it's March 6th. 3-6. 3 sixes is 666. Also note his age is 31. 31 is 3 ones, esoterically, 111, and that brings you back to 9/11 and the ritual that happened then. 9/11 is on the 111 days left in the year, and it happened in New York. Gives you 111. There's a lot to get into in today's video. I want to stay on track here, but I really just want to reveal to you the esoteric side of these numbers and how they're right there in front of our face and we could work with them. And I was talking to anticipate this 44th week of the year being full of rituals, and it absolutely was, by the code. I just showed you 3-6 tied to his birthday, 306th day, he gets sentenced, or found guilty, rather. And it's also the same day that Bitcoin hits 36,000, Bitcoin being 36 in Gematria. So before we were showing how this 48 code tied to his name, and if you take from the end of Jubilee, Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, to this date of November 2nd, gives you 48 days. Now, consider the key dates in the timeline for FTX back in 2022. It was the lunar eclipse back on November 8th of 2022 where FTT token crashed. And I've spoken about the significance this year of November 9th in my past videos, probably my last 2 videos. First off, when we were just talking about 9/11 before, well, in the Gregorian calendar, you would write this date internationally as 9/11. But what I'm mostly focused on about this date is that it's the day leaving 52 days in the year. And we've been talking about this number 52 all year. Not only because it's tied back to cryptocurrency, what we're specifically focused on here, but it's in the Chinese zodiac year of the rabbit that we're in right now. And you could see that 52. Coincidentally, Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 110 years in prison, and rabbit equals 110. This code does not favor this individual too much. But jokes aside, getting back to this 52, well, if we connect from the last day of Rosh Hashanah this year, which was the 18th, not including the end date, you're going to see that between the end of Jubilee to November 9th equals 52 days. And this is the day that lands on 52 days left in the year. And we had that 52 tied directly to the word cryptocurrency. But look at how September 18th, effectively the end of Jubilee, giving you a 25 standard date numerology, just like crypto gives you 25 in the same cipher. So 52 days after the Hebrew New Year is over, end of Jubilee is the day leaving 52 days left in this Gregorian year. That's important. Also, it's 77 days after Donald Trump's momentary arrest. That 77 code is very important esoterically because it's 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah years is 49, and on the 50th year you practice Jubilee. So that 77 is tied perfectly into all of this. 49, 7 squared, 7 sevens. It's a very powerful number in Judaism, and we just had our Jubilee end on this date. It only comes around once every 50 years. So it's important we invest our attention into this stuff now that we've seen how this is all transpired. And I've been talking about the Jubilee a year before we even got here. So you are more than well enough prepared if you were taking this seriously. But we have, right after the end of this Jubilee on September 18th, right after it ended, what happened? A war started between Israel and Palestine. And anyone who's been following along this channel was expecting a Black Swan event to happen around this exact time frame. I said between the end of Jubilee, which is September 18th, until October 14th, which was the solar eclipse. Spoken about it in tons of interviews I've done this year on my YouTube channel, during my live streams. You've probably heard me say it before, leading into the month of September. And here we have it. On October 7th, we had Israel declaring war, which kind of smells like the start of what could potentially be a world war leading into next year. And we'll talk about that in future videos. I also discussed that theory in my latest Red Pill podcast over on my Patreon, which I just released a couple days ago, and I went deep into this idea that there could really well be a war breaking out involving more countries. The first domino falling being last year with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Moving into this year, we've had at the end of Jubilee, effectively in the year of the rabbit, we're having this event happen with Israel. Now all we really need is next year during the year of the dragon for the dragon to get involved. And who is that? That's China. So I'll be talking about that more in my videos as we go on, but to stay on track here, I want to get back to this. We have an important note about the first president of Israel. His name is Chaim Weizmann, and he died on November 9th. And I think it's important that we bring this up. That's the 9/11 date in that Gregorian system, written internationally. Now, this individual also died. Let me bring this up. I think it would be fair, so that you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about here. So this individual, let me get straight to his dates and you'll see what I'm revealing here. So died November 9th, that's 9/11, in the year 52. We were talking about rabbit being the 52, and he died at 77 years old. 77, literally perfectly coded into what was our Jubilee year. Noticed how he died in 52. That was during the Shemitah. That was right before the Yom Kippur War. And we're going to talk about this in a moment. But I just want to show you how literally this man's death date is insanely coded into all of this. So we have plenty of connections for tomorrow, November 9th. But I have so much more to share that will solidify why the apex predator decided to orchestrate this war to happen during this exact time, post-Jubilee. Now, I found this gem to consider, and it's the date in the Hebrew calendar of 17 Kislev. Excuse me on my pronunciations if that's not accurate. Well, you can see over here in Jewish history and tradition on the date of 17 Kislev in 1947, we have the United Nations General Assembly approves a plan for the partition of Palestine, which eventually led to the creation of the state of Israel. Now, this year, the date of 17 Kislev lands on the 30th of November. That's critical because this is the day before the date that David Ben-Gurion died on, which was December 1st. So really incredible how this is all coded into this. Now, David Ben-Gurion is credited as the primary founder of the state of Israel and the state's first prime minister. And if you remember in my last video, I mentioned the significance of the last Friday of the month of November and the first Friday in the month of December regarding a pullback for the indices, specifically the stock market. This year, that lands between November 24th through December 1st. And as mentioned earlier, December 1st is the day that this individual died on. And why this is so significant is because David Ben-Gurion died in 1973. 1973 was the year of the Yom Kippur War. That was 50 years ago, tied to this Jubilee, and that was a 50-year cycle. Here we are, 50 years later, with this war starting in Israel at the same exact time as the Yom Kippur War, 50 years to the date. So the same year David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, dies, The Jubilee Code is directly tied to the primary founder of the State of Israel, who died 50 years ago. He literally died during the last Jubilee. So I was just showing you how moments ago, Chaim Weizmann, the first essential president or chairman of Israel, also tied to the same time frame. What are the odds? And remember earlier I was talking about the number 52, and that number 52 being tied to the word cryptocurrency and also the Chinese zodiac year of the rabbit being 52. Well, David Ben-Gurion in Chaldean is 52. Also 73, like how in 1973 he died, how in 1973 we had the Yom Kippur War. The last time Israel was effectively at war. So consider 52 days after this war in Israel has started, which was October 7th. I think this will be important for us to consider. 52 days after that date is leading us into the 28th of November. Now, this day is very important because it leaves 33 days left in our year. 33 is the master number of transmutation. So I'm trying to use this code that we're getting from other places and apply it to our dates to see if we could have some effect here on these particular dates and in this time frame. Now, one other thing to mention about this date is if we were to tie it to I want to talk about December 1st just one more time, kind of hang out there for a moment. We're going to bring that to the date of Israel's independence, which is considered to be May 14th. And of this year, what we have is 201 days apart. 201 becomes 21. That 21 is tied back to Saturn. You've heard me talk about this a lot, this Saturnian essence that runs this world stage. Well, you probably all remember Event 201, right? Go look that up if you haven't already. Well, 21 esoterically becomes 2 ones, which is 1 1, the 11 master number. And you could see this year on December 1st, we have an 11 master number as the standard date numerology. Also remember, I was talking about in my last video about the month of November. Novem should actually be 9. It's the 9th month in the true system. Okay, it's not the 11th. Well, that would make December naturally the 10th month in the system, not the 12th. Decimus in Latin means 10th, and deci or deci means 10, not 12. So we know our Gregorian calendar is a scam. So the December 1st date would actually look like 110. Written internationally, that's 110. Coincidentally, the amount of years Sam Bankman-Fried faces in prison, but 110 in numerology, removing the zeros becomes 11, the master number 11, perfectly tied into the date numerology and this exact date. Back in December 1st of 1973, the exact date that David Ben-Gurion died, what we can see, and I'm going to show you this really quickly just so you could follow along here, 1973, back on December 1st, we have this being a 24 date numerology. Now this is critical and I believe revealing to us code because we're currently in the Hebrew year of 5,784, which adds up to 24. And we're heading into the Gregorian year of 2024. And in this year, on April 8th in 2024, America has the Great American Eclipse, which forms an X over the state of Texas. X is the 24th letter in the alphabet. That's why this year, Elon Musk changed the name of Twitter to X Corp in preparation for this ritual. Remember, his Tesla factory is in Texas. Also, Elon Musk giving you that 110. We just talked about that number moments ago. He's another talking head that'll you'll continue to hear more from during this transhumanist agenda. Interestingly enough, he turned 52 this year during the year of the rabbit equals 52. It's incredible how coded in this individual is into all of this. And he will definitely continue to be part of the cryptocurrency and blockchain updates as we go, especially into next year. The apex predator will absolutely leverage on him. Make sure his handlers are telling him what he should be saying and exactly how he should be behaving. on the world stage. He is a puppet. So December 1st this year also has the same date numerology as another important date that we've already made it through on March 10th of 2023. You guys have heard me speak about this so many times. You already know this is the day that Silicon Valley Bank failed. And look at the date numerologies, 56, 56, 11, and 11, perfectly matching. So keep that in mind. So I think it's very important to consider the end of this month between November 28th to December 1st around this upcoming full moon, which is on November 27th, for an event tied to this current war theme in Israel. And my intuition also tells me that there could be more issues with retail banks again, like we had with Silicon Valley Bank and Silvergate and Signature. We could very well see some big companies filing for bankruptcy around this time as well. And I know we already had what happened just a couple days ago with WeWork. So the last thing to mention is, in fact, we know these eclipses play a big role in what happens on the world stage, as shown through the history of my channel. And we even talked about it earlier in this video with FTX collapsing on the last day or of the last lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle, something that only happens every 2.5 years. And some of you probably remember Terra Luna got ritualized too during that year, and that was the lunar eclipse. So the lunar eclipse back in May of 2022, Terra Luna collapses. Terra Luna gets sacrificed moving into a lunar eclipse, losing about 99% of its value into the Friday the 13th. So let me just quickly pull up this chart if I have it and you could see what I'm saying. So we have here, on this exact day of Friday the 13th, May 13th, 2022, this project effectively lost 99.99% of its value into that exact date, and then moving into the lunar eclipse on May 15th. Coincidentally, Terra Luna's all-time high was $119, 119. Of course, the mirror of 9/11. It's all scripted. I believe earlier I was speaking about the number 31 tied to Sam Bankman-Fried, how he's 31 years old. Well, Do Kwon equals 31 in Chaldean. He turned 31 years old. The same year his project had an incredible bull run, followed by essentially going to zero, getting completely sacrificed. I showed you earlier 31 is 3 ones, 111, and I just showed you how this project's price and crash was tied to the number 911. Well, that 111 code I just showed you moments ago, directly tied to the 911 ritual. New York in Gematria equals 111, and September 11th is the day that leaves 111 days in the year. It's all scripted. I'll wrap up today's decode with this. November 28th, I think, is important for us to consider, the day after our full moon, this being 33 days left in the year, and it's connected to the start of our solar cycle, which was on the 20th of April by 222 days. Naturally, that makes the next day, November 29th, the 333rd day of the year, being 223 days since the start of our solar cycle. That's the skull and bones number, 223 in the 223 year, the mirror of 322. They're called the order 322. That's skull and bones. That is Saturn. And this leading perfectly into the date in the Hebrew calendar we were talking about, which is 17 Kislev, the 30th of this month, the day before David Ben-Gurion's death date, which happened back during the year of the Yom Kippur War. And here we are. So it's very important. Remember, the 17 Kislev is the date in 1947 that the United Nations approved a plan for the partition of Palestine, which led to the creation of the State of Israel. Also, back in 1947, the day that happened on, in the Hebrew calendar, 17 Kislev landed on the Gregorian date of November 30th. And this year it lands on the same exact date. So it's perfectly synchronized between these two calendars. Now, some of you might not find that to be so significant, but I want you to take a look for yourselves at the Hebrew calendar and start with the month of November and work your way up from 1947, at least 10 years following, to 1957, and you will see how rare it is for these dates to sync up this way, let alone sync up perfectly to the exact date. I believe in just 1948, 17 Kislev is in the middle of December. So it's all over the place with the Hebrew calendar because they consider the moon cycles. And that's why their New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and all their other holidays are adjusting like that. Okay? So it's important that we realize how synced that is, and it adds even more accuracy and confidence to this decode. Remember how I mentioned 31 moments ago being 111, 3 ones, and 9/11, the Terra Luna ritual eclipse? Well, November 30th, which is 17 Kislev, this Hebrew calendar date is the day leaving 31 days in the year. You can see that right there. And 31 being your 11th prime number, 11 or 2 ones is 2 towers. Okay? So remember, November 18th being the 322nd day of the year, the 322 number. I already talked about this in my past video. That's the skull and bones number. And then we have November 28th through December 1st with an emphasis on November 30th. So before we get into the technical analysis, go ahead and give this video a like if you haven't already, and go spread some love in the comment section. That's what we're all about here. We're going to start out today with XRP, actually, since it recently hit my target of 70 cents before the end of this year. And I shared an update on my channel over here a couple of days ago. Let me quickly just get to this XRP chart and we'll be getting going. So I shared an update a couple of days ago over on x.com, and make sure to go follow my channel over here at WATERSABVE with no O in waters above, and you're going to be able to get some of these short-term updates, so make sure to follow if you like these shorter updates. In that post, I warned actually about this overheated RSI, and on the daily chart for XRP, we had XRP rally into about 73 cents. The RSI was already at the same level as it was back on the July 13th rally when XRP was no longer deemed a security by the court. And as we're all well aware, that led to a substantial correction. Now, this time around, I don't see there being a big correction, but I do anticipate a short-term pullback during this month. So now let's identify the targets. I'm going to be getting over here to this post that I made. I shared this a couple days ago over on my Patreon right after I released my newest Red Pill podcast this Sunday. And for anyone who has recently joined my Patreon, I appreciate all your support. It really means a lot to have you join our community. What we're doing over there is going to definitely set us up for one of the most transformational bull runs in 2024. So if you're interested in joining our mastermind community, that's over at patreon.com/watersabove. That includes access to my weekly Red Pill podcasts, as well as access to our community Discord server. And also I share what I'm personally buying and selling with live investment updates. So this is one of the posts I sent out this week to expose a pattern that I've been talking about since April of this year, pretty much a half a year ago. It's how I was able to determine that XRP would break out to 80 to 90 cents during this time frame, followed by a correction, regardless of what was going on with the Ripple and this SEC case. After sharing this thesis on multiple interviews with the Bearable Bull, that's confirmed over on his channel. So if you watched any of that leading into this moment, you were definitely prepared, and anyone who prepared themselves for this move and took action according to that analysis can definitely vouch for this strategy. Also, shout out to the Bearable Bull for allowing me to share my truth over on his channel. I'm definitely looking forward to getting back in touch with him again soon. So this chart is broken down into 3 phases. They're color-coded, which compares back to early 2021 or late 2020. Over here, you had a couple of different phenomenon. You had this rise with the Flare token airdrop stuff, and then this big, deep correction because of the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. But the pattern is pretty much playing out identical from a technical perspective. And I was taking this seriously earlier this year, and it actually played out exactly how we've been expecting. So now that we've had this update and we're effectively moving into phase 3, I believe it's important that we just reevaluate what's going on here, take our emotions out of this as much as possible, and just see it with clarity. So we're currently in phase 3 compared to back here. And this is back in early 2021 before XRP went up again on this impulse to around $2 in the spring of that year during what was alt season. So we're definitely not in this exact moment. I'm just saying that this setup of these 3 impulses is very much what I anticipate before leading into what could be a macro recovery for XRP. And I see XRP in 2024 making it to double digits above $10. And we'll be talking about that more later. Not important to talk about as much right now while we're still below $1. So to get to this, what happens in phase 1 is we have the 55 simple moving average cross above the 200 simple moving average. And this is regarding the 2-day chart. All of this analysis we're talking about right now is the 2-day. We rallied about 70 days after this cross to phase 2, followed by a correction down to the 200 SMA. And that is exactly what happened this time around. Look, we have this crown top on phase 1, crown top on phase 1. Looks the same. We had this cross of the 55 above the 200, cross in the 55 and 200. We back tested it. Rode on the 55, impulse to the upside. Rode on the 55, impulse to the upside. Correct back to the 200, correct back to the 200. It is the same. Look at the amount of time we rode on the 200 here. Same as this time. We got 3 tests on tails. So what we need to pay attention to is just the cyclicality of this pattern. It's exactly happening this way too. Then what triggers phase 3 is a 2-day candle close above the 55 simple moving average on the 2-day chart. And as you can see in this last iteration, after the short-term rally, we had a back test or a retest on the 55 simple, and we held it as a support before the next impulse. That's important. Now, if you really dial it in, if we were to revisit that exact time in February of 2021 when this was happening, XRP topped out here on the February new moon and then corrected into the 55 simple moving average during the full moon. Then it traded sideways over here, essentially into the following new moon. So what that means this time around is our new moon is on November 13th, about 5 days away. And our current full moon is on November 27th. And during today's decode, I've already explained the significance of late November into the beginning of December. This not only gives us a price target to consider, which is the 2-day 55 simple moving average, but also a time frame of when to expect the retest. So for those people out there that say you can't use any system to time the market, well, you haven't been paying attention to this channel clearly. We're not trying to be in that energy of I told you so or we have the truth. It's just that we are taking the time to really analyze this esoterically. Not only esoterically though, taking the Gematria, Numerology, and Astrology and comparing it to what we're also seeing in these charts to have a holistic system. Now, as of today, if I was to revisit the XRP 2-day chart, we're going to see that our 55 simple moving average, it's up here in white, it's at about 56 cents. It could very well slope to the upside between now and the full moon. And between the 2-day and the 3-day charts for XRP, all of our key moving averages are around 56 to 58 cents. Consider these levels can be swiped through in a 4-hour candle, then XRP can be right back up to 62 or 64 cents and trade sideways in the current range of 60 to 70 cents into the new year. So think about that. Before the end of this month, we can come down slightly below 60 or around 60, quickly get bought back up to like 63, 62, 65, range below 70, and then stay sideways until getting into the year of 2024. Now, after early 2024, moving into February, March, April, I believe XRP is going to be very bullish, and it's going to be reminiscent of this move right here, which we would call phase 4, or the start of what will be our new bull cycle for XRP. Of course, if we didn't have this SEC case happen at that time, we would have had much more action in XRP, but it is what it is. We're here today. We can't do anything about it. All we can do now is how will we posture ourselves for the next rally, for the next run. And anything below $1, when we're looking at potentially $10 plus in the future, it's a opportunity. Again, that's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing how I'm looking at this. So I would love to have this back test on XRP somewhere around this 60-cent level. It would be a nice little entry to get in, but I've already shared over on my Patreon. Again, that's a perk for any Patreon supporters. I was buying in my XRP right there around 49 cents, which was effectively our horizontal trading median range. So I'm really happy with that, because if you were following along, you'll know that I was getting in earlier in the year at 37, 38 cent XRP. I de-risked between 80 to 90. Actually, about 86 was my de-risk average. And then I bought back in around 49 cents. So if I was to look at so far how these plays are going, it's incredible, this accuracy. And it's just because I'm allowing this system to play itself out. I'm trading my plan. I'm not letting my emotions get involved in this. It's very clear to me. So, a couple of things to consider. We have 5 more days until the new moon. So between now and then, we could definitely have another move up for XRP. Even a swipe to 75 cents or slightly higher is possible. That's actually what happened back in this cycle over here. If you consider zooming into February of 2021, you'll see it sort of went like that. So we could have another impulse quickly to a slightly higher high, maybe 75, etc. That's actually identical to back in 2021, but overall around a pullback to 60 cents is still in the cards, especially if the overall market relaxes into the end of this month, like I talked about in my last YouTube video. We could also see something like a bearish M pattern forming, where we have our first top, we have a double top in the micro, it would be like an M pattern, and then we could have that pullback come down all the way to the low 60s or high 50s. So that's another scenario. But it doesn't matter, there's no reason to get lost in the minutia. Just consider the cyclicality of this pattern that we've discussed and how a backtest on the 55 would be sensible. It would also be generally ideal for XRP to do that. Just considering the way that we moved up just as of last week, it's a little bit overheated. It's good to stall out a little bit and have a more mature run. So now let's get over to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just hanging out on this support level over here. We can see flagging out quite a bit. We made our 36K high into that November 2nd date like we talked about. We got a little bit of a test, maybe I believe yesterday, bullish impulse, but a rejection. And we're just holding this higher lows pattern right here on this white trend line. So I would like to actually go to the daily chart and show you what's happening. It's the 8 simple moving average that matters most. So if I was to turn off all this noise and just leave you with our candles and the moving averages, it's the 8 simple moving average. If Bitcoin can close a daily below that 8 simple, I believe we will have a short-term move to around 34K being our current daily close lows. We have right here at October 25th and here at October 27th, the bounce on October 28th. That's our horizontal level to keep in mind, 34K. Now, for any deeper pullbacks, with these type of breakouts on Bitcoin, it's normal to see a retest on the 34 exponential moving average. So that's right here, and it's sloping up very fast day by day. You can see these key EMAs are going parabolic right now, and they're spreading out quite a bit, which is normal on breakouts, as lagging indicators, of course. But most important, it's the 21 exponential that you want to pay attention to. Again, just keep an eye on the 21 EMA on the daily chart. That's the standard level to expect a retest during these types of rallies. So if we break below the 8 simple moving average, which today is sitting at around 35,200, a daily close below there, I would suspect we hang out on the 13, but we still have so much time until the upcoming full moon. we can swipe below into November 8th, maybe, you know, over the next couple of weeks, get around this 34K level. And I would really not bet on a bearish Bitcoin at this time. I've spoken about in my last video too, how we have a pattern playing out between the start of our second solar eclipse in the solar cycle, the way the lunar eclipse reacts with the following full moon. So what did I state in that video? I said that the lunar eclipse target is actually, we expect the following full moon to close higher for Bitcoin. So whatever happens between now and then and the 27th of November, well, that's probably the last best opportunity to get on Bitcoin before another move to the upside. And then those upside targets, I would just identify somewhere around 39 to 40K. 40K is that level that's very psychological based, and we've already been moving up since 15,000 on Bitcoin. We've seen a 54% dominance on Bitcoin. We're just kind of continuing to do this rally, chop, retest, rally, chop, retest, rally, chop, retest vibe. I do feel we have one more short term, maybe 33K, 34K, and then Bitcoin will keep it moving into the end of this year. I also think updated Bitcoin target for the end of this year, it would make sense for us to hit 39K into the next, or the last new moon of the year, somewhere around 38, 39. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. I'll be catching some of you on my next live stream. In the meantime, wishing you all a beautiful rest of your day. Much love.